So my name is Mike Brightman. My company is Brightman Designs, and we offer design, drafting, visualization, and workflow training services. And just about everything we do revolves around SketchUp Pro, Layout, Lumion, and our Condoc tools. And so if you haven't been to one of these office hour sessions before, what we do is we take a recent and relevant 3D topic and just do a quick presentation, usually 15 to 30 minutes, and then we answer any questions you might have after that. To fill out the hour, and you can ask questions about the presentation, the plugins we're showing, or Layout, SketchUp, Lumion, Condoc. Those are all things that I can speak about, shoot from the hip, and answer your questions on the fly. So definitely check out our presentation, stick around to ask questions. If you got to run though, don't worry, because we do record these sessions. And what we do is we chop them up into nice little bite-sized videos. So we'll take our presentation from today and make that one YouTube video. We'll take all of the good questions that we had good answers for, and we'll chop those up into YouTube videos, bundle them up in a blog, and we'll email it to you in about 1 month when we remind you that we're going to do this office hours session again. So what I'm getting at, make sure is that you scroll down to the bottom of the page and sign up for our newsletter. That way you'll get the recap of this one and you'll get a reminder for our next one. So what we're looking at today is this blog post from Lumion. It's curtains. So that was a new feature in Lumion 7, is this transparencies. And so that was a pretty cool, really cool new feature with the waxiness and the transparencies. And so there's been a lot of activity around these images in this blog post, and I think a lot of it is regarding these curtains that are kind of blowing in the breeze. And so there's a few questions about how do we make our curtains blow in the breeze? Is that like an object in Lumion, or how do we make it look like that? And the truth is that it's not an object in Lumion, and it's not a property of the curtain material. You do need to make those objects yourself. And then you can certainly apply a really nice transparent curtain material in Lumion. So what we're going to do today is go through the process of creating those curtains and make them kind of blow in the breeze, because it's a very organic modeling task. You know, it's not like straight lines like SketchUp is normally good at. It's using a lot of kind of flowing curves and loose modeling. So I'm going to show you a few tricks that I put together to create these curtains. And I've already rattled off just 3 or 4 of them while I was practicing. And so we'll upload those to the 3D warehouse and make sure to share those links and make a blog post about this as well. So again, make sure you sign up for a newsletter. You'll get the information when all that's posted. So what we're going to do though is, you can see on this event page, we do have a couple links. Form Fonts is really an excellent place to grab 3D models. So check out formfonts.com. If your object library is lacking, these guys will completely fill it out for you. I just Googled real quick pergola, because what I was trying to do is match, you know, kind of work off of this image that was on the Lumion blog. So on formfonts.com, I typed in pergola, and I came up with this model, and I thought, you know, that's as good as any. And so what I did is I built a quick site around this pergola and swapped a few materials, and you can see I added like these little decking materials and a little wall, just to kind of match what was going on in that rendering. Gives it a little bit of more detail. And then also I used Artisan Tools to build and mound this entire site. So the Artisan Tools, you know, not only are we going to build our curtains using the Artisan Tools, but I use the Artisan Tools to build this site. So you can use things like the Sculpt Tool, set your radius to like 120, maybe 120 feet. And then I can kind of click and drag, and we'll go with our Sculpt. And you can see that it's moving. I need to increase my pressure there, and see how you can kind of like just mold this site around. So it's really a nice suite of tools that kind of complements SketchUp, gives it a lot more capabilities when it comes to organic modeling. And we're going to get into that here. Okay, so then the other thing we're going to use, if I look at our events page as well, at the top again we have these links. Talked about Artisan Tools and Form Fonts, and then ShapeBender. Oh, and sorry, Artisan Tools is it's not a free plugin. They might have a trial or some free version, but it's extremely reasonably priced. I think they have a sale right now where it's like half off, but don't quote me on that. ShapeBender is a free plugin. What that does is it takes an object and bends it to a line, And then we're going to also use FredoScale, which is like the scale tool, except it offers up a lot of different options for scaling, like tapering and twisting and bending. So I'm going to run through a couple of commands with these tools and show you how it's pretty easy to make some curtains. So let's get started. All right, so in SketchUp, after I build this model, we're going to pull it into Lumion and we're going to render it and do a few tasks in there to come up with an image that looks like that one that we're working off of. So, all right, so the first thing I do in here is I want to set up, I know that my Shape Bender plugin, it has to work on the red axis. Okay, so I'm going to choose a wall that's on the red axis. I'll activate my rectangle tool, hover on a surface, and hold Shift. That way I'm constrained to that surface, and now I can just kind of click twice and create that surface. Now, one thing I can suggest always is to group early and group often. So the first thing I do is make that a group, double click in, and that way I'm kind of isolating this geometry from the rest of my model. I have a keyboard shortcut for that hide rest of model. All right. Now, let's get going with the Artisan Tools. I'm going to select this surface, and in order for the Artisan Tools to work, I need to subdivide it. So I'm just going to click on Subdivide Selection, and you can see that it kind of broke that selection up. I'm going to click it again, and see I can break that thing down several times, not too many times. That looks about right, because each time it probably doubles the amount of surfaces on there. So that looks, I'm going to hit it one more time and see what that does for us. And you can imagine that it's creating a lot of surfaces, but that's going to give us a really refined mesh. I don't think I want to go that far. I'm going to hit Control Z, and we're going to stick with this amount of surfaces. All right. So we're good there. I'm just going to make this into a group, and now I'm going to draw a line on the red axis. All right, so I'm just going to draw it right on top of that. So you can see that we've got, let me turn off our red axis. So you can see I've got this line kind of right under it. All right, and then I'm going to take that line, I'm just going to copy it. So straight out here, and we're going to draw some arcs. So this is the shape that we're going to bend, and I need to draw a path to bend along. So I'll use my arc tool, and you can see that I've set my sides. I think the default number of sides is 12, which is really smooth, and I want my default number of sides to be 4. So as I click to start, I'll type 4S, enter, and then I'm going to make this go 6 inches along the line, and then we're going to bulge by maybe we'll say 2 inches. All right, and then I'm going to take this arc, make a copy, and then scale it to -1, and then let's just get rid of some of these extra edges, and we're going to take this and make a copy of it, and we're going to do that like 8 times. So I type 8x, enter. All right, so now I can get rid of those last 2, and maybe I'll take these guys and scale them, and I'm just going to snap it to that edge of the rectangle. That way it's the perfect, it matches the width of our curtain exactly. So what Shape Bender does is I'm going to select this object, activate Shape Bender. It's going to ask me to pick a line on the red axis. What that line does, it determines like the center point of the bend. So it's basically aligning this line to this edge, and if you want it to be offset, you could move that line that I drew right here. You could move that around. That's for experimentation. I won't get too far into that. And then the last click is to click on this line that we created with our arcs. All right, so let's do it. Here's Shape Bender. I'll activate, I'll use my select tool to select this mesh, activate Shape Bender, and in the bottom corner of my screen it says please select a single line that lies on the red axis. All right, so that's that one. Now it says please select a curve to bend the shape to, and I'll click on that. It's going to crank for just a moment, and then there's the solution. So check that out. It gives us like a preview of that mesh bent on that line. So I'll just hit enter. All right, now for whatever reason it usually jumps up, so let's just move that right back down, no problem. All right, so there's our mesh. All right, so it's all bent along that edge. Now that's starting to look like a curtain. I am going to triple click on this, and I want to soften our geometry. See how a lot of these edges did not get softened? I'm going to triple click and go over here to my my tray, and use soften edges and make sure that everything's softened real nice. All right. Now, at this point, I can get rid of these two edges that I drew down low. Back out of here, and you know what I'll do? Actually, this is a good tip, is to take these edges and cut them, and then I'm going to take this mesh. I'll just do a paste in place, and then we're going to scoot this one down the line. All right, that way I can hold on to it for later. All right, just like that. Now I'm going to scoot this curtain back into place, like that. All right, so we're in pretty good shape here. See, that's, it's kind of good just to hold on to these different kind of working models that you're creating. Like right now, this is like your standard curtain that's hanging down, and maybe you want to expand on that, and cut holes through this, or turn it into a curtain that hangs, and before you go and modify it and turn it into the curtain that blows in the breeze. All right, so at this point, let's double click in, and again, we've isolated our geometry. This is probably a good time to just paint some materials on here. So I'll go to my paint bucket tool. Let's see, I already had this like wallpaper, this dog bone. This comes with SketchUp. I'll just paint that on there, and that looks pretty good. And yeah, so that's about as good as it gets there for what we're trying to do. So there's our curtain. All right, now I want to make this thing taper, because right now I would imagine what would happen is when something blows in the breeze, this top would be kind of pinned together, whereas the bottom would kind of be stretching out and flowing. So what I'm going to do is activate my FredoScale. So we've used Shape Bender, we've used Artisan, and now let's use FredoScale. And if I hover, let's see, it's actually this taper one. So now I hover on the top here, and see, I can click and I can stretch that down, and see what it's doing? It's like tapering that whole shape with one scale. So it's like the scale tool, just gives me a lot more options. All right, so I'm going to call this like 0.05 enter. All right, and that way I get like a precise scale on there. And let that one think for a moment. There we go. See how that kind of like flattens out now? That's pretty cool. We could also turn on our profiles. Let me go to Edge Style, Profiles. That kind of helps sometimes to see what's going on. There you go. All right. And we'll turn those off for now. All right, so then I want to do that again, and this time I'm going to make the bottom stretch out just a bit. All right, so we're going to go back to our taper tool, hover on the bottom, click, and this one I'm going to call 1.25, enter. That way it kind of gets to be a little bit more dramatic as this thing is blowing out. Okay, so now we're good to go there. And here's another tool that's really kind of slick here. I'm going to save this, and then I'm just going to make a copy of this curtain. I don't know, I'll just make it out there like that. And so this one now, I want to use another tool that FredoScale comes with, which is a Radial Bend. And so, I don't know, this one's just really slick. I like this one a lot. If I go over here, it's at the bottom of the toolbar, Radial Bend by selecting plane and angle. So right now you can see that I'm snapped to the green. I'm going to tap the right arrow key. It snaps me to the red. Now, I'm no pro at these tools. I know enough to get by. So you might want to study up and watch their tutorials, but usually it's like you pick, I think the first point is kind of where the bend starts. The next point, I don't know, might be like the end of it, and then I got to click another, and then I can like bend this thing up like that. All right, so we'll get it kind of bending in the breeze like that a little bit. I'll click, and you can see that like the more I subdivide that rectangle when I started, the slower this thing's going to go. All right, so let's just check our geometry. You can see we do have a fair amount of edges and surfaces. Now, I will say that I had a little bit of issues with the Radial Bend creating these extra surfaces. We'll see how they behave if we have any trouble. If they give us any problems, we'll come back and just use this one without the Radial Bend. We can still get a real nice effect. All right, so now I'm going to double click in here, and at this point, You can see the rest of the model here. You know, our curtain's kind of blowing out like that. What I want to do now is activate Artisan Tools. We're going to go with our Sculpt Brush. All right, now our Sculpt Brush, I set the radius to 20 feet. You can see in the bottom right corner of my screen. I want that to be more like maybe 60 inches. That should do it. And you can see it's a pretty aggressive. If I tap the up arrow key or the down arrow key, I can adjust the, almost like the pressure of the brush. And I want the arrow to go the other way. So I'm just going to click that a bunch of times until I get what I'm looking for there. And let's see, I'll just click and click and click and see how that's like kind of pushing that out. So kind of continue to do that. And what I'm watching for is to make sure that these little guys, these little edges here aren't giving us any like weird anomalies there. And it looks like it's doing all right. So I mean, honestly, that one looks pretty good. I could adjust my brush size down to like maybe 24. And you know, if I wanted to like come down here and kind of give like that little extra kick, you know, it's really at this point just whatever you think a curtain blowing in the breeze should look like. I'm going to back off the pressure a little bit. And you can also click and drag with these tools, which is really cool. All right, so do that. All right, so I mean that's about as good as it gets. When I hide the rest of the hidden geometry, turn that off, that looks pretty good. All right, so there's a curtain blowing in the breeze. I'll double click in, and the last thing I'll do, I'm going to also use my, you know, we're just going to get rid of this for now. I'll just hide it, and then I'm going to use my taper tool on this as well. So that entire shape, I'm going to go with the taper tool, and let me get rid of that. Back into this thing here, taper tool. Let's see, I want it to do more like that. And then I want it to kind of have like a direction to it, you know? So I'm going to stretch it this way, like that. And then I'm going to stretch it again. Let's see, it looks like it's like looking for the box here. So let's see, let me tap escape. Activate the taper tool, and let's find the right angle here. This will probably do it like that, and then just kind of get it like moving in that direction, you know? So like the top is still attached to our beam, and now you can see that it's kind of blowing off in the breeze like that. And so then it looks like maybe it should scoot out just a touch, you know, so it's not like totally going through there. Maybe I'll just scale it, do the traditional scale here, and just get that thing to kind of work within our confines. So like, yeah, something, I don't know, something like that. That looks pretty good. All right, so we're good to go there. Now, I created a handful of other curtains. So what I can do is, you know, these will be the ones that we're going to upload. So I've got like Breezy Curtain 1, and so we'll just drop those in there since I've already kind of practiced and made these. And that way we'll be kind of ready to go. So see, they're all kind of created differently, so they'll all have a little bit of a random effect going on. I'll drag in the second one like that. And this one I'm going to rotate by 90. And then place this one over on this side here, like that. Cool. So, yeah, I mean, and you could decide, like, maybe this one, it makes more sense for it to be blowing like this. So I scale it to -1 and then scoot it like that. So, you know, maybe that makes more sense in the weather. So that's pretty cool. I think we got our curtains all set up. So a couple tips with those plugins. Number one, watch their tutorials. It's like you'll learn so much by just watching the people who created it explain to you how to use the tool and the right way to do it. And so I've watched some of the tutorials, but not all of them. I kind of learn enough to get by. And so definitely check those guys out. Artisan Tools, really solid plugin. FredoScale and Shapebender. I use those a lot. They come in real handy with a lot of those tasks. Really what it does, it makes something that looks almost impossible so easy that it gets done within a couple clicks. So that's what's really cool about these. So let's save this. I'll hit save, and we're going to move into Lumion now. And so let's take a look at our Lumion file. We'll go over here to Lumion, and I'm going to start with, we'll just go with the mountains in spring. Why not? So just throw something, it's got mountains, it's got water, looks good. All right, so now I'm going to go over here to my imports, and I'm going to go to import new model, and we're going to go with our presentations for today and our June 13th office hours, and here's our office hours site. I'll choose open, say OK, and I'm going to place this right on the shore there, like that. All right, so now we're not too concerned about meshing this whole thing in there. It looks good enough to me. But what I am going to do is, let's see, I could maybe just scoot this thing down just a touch. Yeah, we'll go up with it. Okay. So really the view that I'm looking for is more like something like this. All right, so let's take a reminder here. Here's kind of the inspiration image that we were going off. Real nice rendering. I'm not sure who did this one, but it's definitely a good look to it. So we got this pergola, we've got some vegetation up top, and we've got our curtains blowing in the breeze. Grass, and I kind of matched their wood decking there. So that's what I'm going for here. So let's go into Lumion, and first thing we want to do is swap out some materials. So what I would do is just go in here, click this, go to Indoor, Curtains, and then I would just choose one of their curtains. I'm going to go with Curtain 2. And then you can always adjust this. We can go to our transparency, and you can adjust the transparency as you see fit. Maybe something like that's good for now. If you want to change it, you always just click on this to go back to your material library, and you can see some other options as well. So I think that just a white curtain, maybe something with a pattern would be kind of cool. That might show up a little bit better. Let's do that. I'll drop the scale of this a little bit. I don't know if that's mapped right. We'll go with something without a pattern. This is perfect. All right, so there, we're good there. And then the other things I would do is like set up like this guy. I would go to outdoor concrete, call that concrete. This one is going to be outdoor. We'll do stone, and then we can choose like a maybe more polished stone than that. That looks pretty good. We'll match this stone as well, so outdoor, stone, something like that. Yeah, we could even change it up like that. And you can always double click on these. You can go to like your weathering effects and dial up your weathering. So you get a lot of cool options here. Oh, let's see, the wood, we'll go to standard and then dial down that reflectivity. So I think we're in pretty good shape. All right, so now, this is kind of the overall workflow of Lumion. Is you build your model in SketchUp, so anything that's static is going to be created in SketchUp or the 3D modeling program. Not just SketchUp, Lumion works with all these different programs. So you're going to build your objects, your static objects in your 3D modeling program, import that model into Lumion, and then you're going to swap the textures. So as long as you're texturing it in a clean way in your 3D modeling program, you swap the textures out for Lumion textures. Then we're going to add some Lumion objects. So I say model the static objects in your modeling program, and then any of the animated objects, you want to use Lumion because that's the only way you would get the animated objects. So vegetation, people walking, birds flying, butterflies, the whole deal. We're going to use Lumion objects. So let's do that. I'll say OK here, and then we're going to move up, and I'm going to go ahead and drop I'll go to my objects, and we're going to go to nature, and we'll go ahead and select an object. I think over here on plants, maybe 2 in, we've got our ivy, top-down ivy, and we've got like a pergola top cover. So I'll click there, and then just click to place that. If I hold H, I can adjust the height like that. And so maybe I want to get like a more strategic view. So that looks pretty good, actually. I think I got that all right. So that looks good. And then if I go to my Move tool, I'll go to my Move tool. If I hold Shift it will lock the plane. So that way I can move this around without like disrupting its height. You know, if I don't hold shift, it'll jump. If I hold shift, it'll lock that plane. All right, now here's another trick. This one took me a while to figure out. Hold shift and alt, and I can make a copy. All right, so that's pretty handy too. Maybe I hold R, rotate this thing to kind of randomize it a bit. Hold shift and hold alt and make another copy. All right, so now we've got like some vegetation going on up top. Let's scoot around here to this side, and we're gonna drop that ivy down, what do they call it? Ivy top down. Drop that in there, and let's see, I'm gonna hold R and rotate this thing, and it's kind of cool how Lumion snaps to, like, looks for your other geometry or something. Hold H and slide that down like that, and then back to my move tool, hold shift, and that way we lock our plane, and I'm just going to kind of match that thing in there like that. All right, so now this is the view that we're going to kind of frame here. Is we've got some ivy in the background. That's looking pretty cool. The other material I need, almost forgot, we need to call this our landscape. And so now that's our grass, and then I'm going to go to, I'll say OK, go to landscape, grass, turn that on, grass height, and grass wildness, and grass size. Pretty cool. All right, and then we're going to go to, let's go to our settings. I like to have my high quality trees on, and let's jack up our quality there. This is a pretty small model, so now that really starts to look pretty cool with all the grass in there. All right, so that looks, that's about the view that we want to shoot, but the last thing we got to add in here, of course, is butterflies, right? So I think those are over here on your plants library, second tab in. Here's our butterflies, and we'll drop those in there. And then let's throw a tree over here as well. So I'll go back to I don't even know. Let's see, we'll go with, just pick a tree, one that's not too perfect, right? I don't know, we'll go with that guy. And then I'll hold M. M lets me move, and then I can kind of adjust that. So yeah, maybe something like that kind of frames it out. Looking good. All right, so I'll hit deselect all. That's always kind of a good idea. And then I'm going to go over to my photo mode, and we can adjust our focal length. I've always kind of increased this a bit. Back up a touch, and let's see, kind of frame our view here, make sure we're getting some of that tree. Oh, I don't know, that looks good to me, like that. All right, so now what we need to do is, you know, we've imported our model, imported our model, swapped our materials, and now we've captured a view. All right, so that's just kind of laying out the workflow. Capture the view. Now we need to build an effect stack. And so I have a way of doing this. I do have some effect stacks that I've already built, but I also have just like a way of doing things that maybe is more valuable than actually sharing an effect stack, because each project has like a different need, or I don't know, different materials and different lighting, and you know, it's interior, it's exterior. So you know, saving an effect stack, that can jumpstart you for sure, but I'll just kind of explain as I go through here. We did a blog post on this, and I think the last big Lumion webinar we did was covering this, but capturing Lumion interiors. But anyway, let me explain this. So I go in here and I add a handful of different effects. So like there's your standard effects like the sun. You know, we got to have the sun assigned to each one of these, all right? So that way I can choose like where do I want, you know, these shadows to drop through. So something like that. I guess that looks pretty cool. And then we need to add shadows. And for me, I think this one means it's interior, exterior shadows. I would do exterior, and then I always dial Omni Shadow all the way up. Final render sun shadow detail, I would do super. All right, add another effect. Global illumination, I don't think is going to be critical for this one. Reflection, we haven't really done a bunch with that. We'll add a global illumination. Speed ray reflections we definitely want. If we had like a big, highly reflective surface, I would definitely add a reflection plane. We'll add our global illumination. That one's sun amount just a little bit. Add another effect. So these are all like standard effects that I add every time. Clouds are good. Maybe you want like less clouds, more clouds. But what's good about the clouds is you can adjust your sky brightness. I've kind of gotten into that a little bit more lately. It's kind of cool to make it brighter. It's kind of cool to make it darker. Just another thing to play with. So if I look at like the sky brightness, when it gets dark, it kind of gets more like a rich shot. And then I think the one that we're looking at is a little bit brighter in general, but I think that our volumetric sunlight will work on that too. So we'll do something like that. Cool. All right, then now some effects that are a little bit more stylistic are like volumetric sunlight, lens flare, depth of field. What are the other ones? Like camera effects, exposure, and 2-point perspective and bloom. I do like to add all of these. And then the last category of effects are like color correction, selective saturation, sharpness, noise. So I do add a lot of those too, just about every time. All right, so we'll go with 2-point perspective, and I'll turn that on. I'll add another one. We're going to go with depth of field, and I'll turn autofocus on and hit edit. I want my focus to be right there on that front column and say OK. And then we're going to dial up the amount so you can see that we can choose to blur either the foreground or the background. So on this one, I'll increase the sharp area size. I don't want my curtains blurred at all. And then I'll just choose a different bokeh shape, whatever. Looks good. All right. And then let's add volumetric sunlight. I don't know. I can't. I have a hard time. Usually I just dial it way down, to be honest. The range and the brightness, it's kind of a tricky one to get right. But just a little bit of haze in the sky is kind of cool. And let's see, now we're good there. Objects, we don't really need to worry about. I'll go with exposure. We'll probably get into that in just a moment here, so you can either overexpose, underexpose. And then bloom, I've been a big fan of lately. Kind of gives that like more dreamy effect. So let me back off our bloom and our exposure. So that's kind of cool. Makes everything just a little bit dreamier, I guess. So again, here, see the sky brightness is pretty intense, and then that tree is pretty blacked out. But you could go back to your clouds and sky brightness, and brighten that way up, back the bloom off. But I don't know. That looks cool. Let's do this. I don't know if I love this shot. All right, it's fine. And then we'll go here, and let's see. All right, so I always add noise, and then the intensity. You can see, I don't know if you can see the difference, but intensity should be up a little bit, and then add another effect. For this one, we'll go Analog Color Lab, just because we're going nuts, and just dial it up all the way, and then see where the range is on this. And usually with analog, I just don't go too far with that. And then the last one would maybe be like vignette, and back off the vignette amount, and then the softness could be a little bit more, just so there's a touch of it going on. And what I've been doing lately too is remove that vignette, and I'll go with camera and handheld camera, and there's this film age, and so you can kind of get that film age effect, which is kind of cool too, I think. So we're just kind of going nuts on the effects here. So whether this is your flavor or not, that's for you to decide. But that's kind of the approach I take, is I add the standard effects, and then the stylistic effects, and then like the post or pre-processing effects. So things that I would normally have done in Photoshop, I can get those done in Lumion. All right, let's render this, and then I think that'll be it for us. So let's, I'll hit 3840, go with our desktop temp, and call this image 1. And let's see what we come up with. That renders rather quickly. And the only thing, I'm curious to see how transparent our curtains are. I wonder if I should have made those more transparent. And let's check our file, and let's see. Oh, where did I render that to? I put that in my temp folder, so let's open with our photos. So, not bad. First glance, I would say that maybe my bloom and my exposure is kind of blowing out that curtain a little bit. And if I wanted to maybe make it a little bit more realistic. I might dial the transparency of the curtains down. So let's just do that. I'll do that real quick here. We'll go with our curtains. So it's very easy to make these edits. Click here. Here's our transparency, and I'm going to make them a bit more transparent, like that. And then we'll go back to photo mode and take a look at our bloom and exposure. And bloom can probably come down. Exposure by default is at like 0.5. I'll just back it off and see what that does for us. All right, so let's render that again. Image 1, okay. And this way we should be able to see through our curtains just a little bit more. All right. Okay, then again, we'll go to our desktop temp, and here's image 1. Yeah, so it's not so washed out. Maybe our curtains are still a little bit too opaque, but you know, you get the idea. So rather quickly, you can get to something close. I agree that this image is rather beautiful. They did a really good job. Their curtains are nice and flowy. I think we've accomplished some of that. So either way, whether we got it absolutely dead on, I just want you to take away that those are the tools that I would use to get this job done. Certainly, you can look up, form fonts. The first thing I did is I looked for curtains blowing in the breeze. They didn't have anything, so I just decided to make it. Not to say that there's not some other library out there where you could purchase these curtains, but it's kind of nice to learn how to do it yourself too.